That's kind of the gift of impermanence is the appreciation, the deep appreciation of the preciousness of what we have. We have so much in any given moment. As bad as things might be, we still often have a lot. It's worth taking it in, isn't it?
You're listening to the Mindful Mama podcast, episode number 292. Today, we're talking about how to stop burnout with Dr. Gail Gazelle. Welcome to the Mindful Mama podcast, now with over 1 million downloads. Here, it's about becoming a less irritable, more joyful parent. At Mindful Mama, we know that you cannot give what you do not have. And when you've calm and peace within, then you can give it to your children. I'm your host, Hunter Clark-Field's Mindful Mama mentor. I help smart, thoughtful parents stay calm so they can have strong, connected relationships with their children. I've been practicing mindfulness for over 20 years. I'm the creator of Mindful Parenting, and I'm the author of Raising Good Humans, a mindful guide to breaking the cycle of reactive parenting and raising kind, confident kids. Hello, and welcome back to the Mindful Mama podcast. I'm so glad to be talking to you. Filled with gratitude, welcome. If you are a continued listener, so glad to connect with you, and I'm so glad to connect with you if you're new. In just a moment, I'm going to be sitting down with Dr. Gail Gazelle, a certified mindfulness teacher, former consultant for the U.S. Department of Justice, and one of the nation's preeminent physician burnout coaches. And she's the author of Everyday Resilience. And we're going to talk about what does it mean to be resilient? How do we build resilience? And in this really important episode, we're going to talk about how to really build inner strength and weather life's changes. So I want you to listen for how looking into our strengths and past challenges can help us call upon them in future need. We're going to talk a little bit about that inner critic, how this voice might be developed from external voices we've heard over the years, and the gift of impermanence, like really appreciating what we have now. So this is a very powerful episode for you to listen to, and I can't wait for you to dive in. And just as a quick reminder, resilience tools are a part and parcel of the mindful parenting clear method. And the calm step in the clear method is all about those habits that steady the heart, the mind, the nervous system, understanding and taking care of our triggers, taking care of difficult feelings, those essential tools for life, right? That is the building blocks of the mindful parenting method. And if you're ready to dive in, get that personal coaching, lifetime support that you need to really take things to the next level, go ahead and learn more. Get on the wait list at mindfulparentingcourse.com. So that's mindfulparentingcourse.com. And that's all I got to say before we dive into this awesome episode. Join me at the table as I talk to Dr. Gail Gazelle. So I'm thrilled today to have Dr. Gail Gazelle with me. And Dr. Gazelle is a certified mindfulness teacher, a former consultant for the United States Department of Justice, and one of the nation's preeminent physician burnout coaches. She's also the author of the new book, Everyday Resilience. So welcome to the Mindful Mama podcast,
Oh, it's
Gail.
a
I'm so
pleasure to
happy to
be
have you.
here. Thank
Good.
you.
Good. And I think that there's so much I want to talk to you about. Burnout is a big issue, whether especially for physicians, and I know we have a lot of nurses and physicians who are our listeners, who are parents, and also resilience. We can all kind of relate to the ideas of burnout and resilience. But I know that you didn't just decide one day, let me think I'll write about burnout and resilience. Is probably your own story that has
Hmm.
led you to this work. Do you mind sharing some of that?
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I'll start near the present and then I'll go back a little bit in time. So, I'm a physician. I spent most of my career as a hospice physician, taking care of people near the end of life, terminally ill individuals and their loved ones. And I learned a tremendous amount about resilience. People are dealt a bad hand of cards through no fault of their own, typically a cancer diagnosis, for example. And you really, as a hospice worker, you see people who really mobilize, who really, come to grips with the difficulty that they're facing and, in a sense, rise to the occasion. In a
Mm,
sense, decide, well, I'm going to make the most of whatever time I have, as limited as it might be.
mm,
And that's a lot of what resilience is about. So I've learned so much through being on sacred journeys with hospice patients. I've also spent the last decade working as an executive coach for other physicians. And you might think, oh, physicians, they're resilient, they have everything that they need. But even before the pandemic, the life of the physician is very challenging. Obviously, it's a high stakes profession, to say the least. And many physicians are perfectionists, and they're taught that they always have to have the answer. And if they don't, they're a failure. And
Mm.
what do physicians do when there's uncertainty, like the pandemic, right? All of
Yeah.
this uncertainty, all of this change. So, as a coach working with physicians, I've learned just a tremendous amount about resilience in the physician workforce. But just to travel back in time as well, Hunter, I grew up in a complicated family, like many of your listeners, I'm sure. There was a lot of abuse in a family that looked great on the outside, the white picket fence kind of family. And I've done a lot of work to recover, so to speak, from the challenges that I faced in my own childhood. And so I feel like I come by resilience honestly. I
Mm.
have so much joy in my life now that I never could have imagined as a child or even, into my adult life when I was struggling with what had happened to me as a young person. And it's been quite a journey, a successful journey. So I wrote the book to share what I've learned in a variety of pursuits because we all need resilience. You can be sure of that.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry to hear about the abuse that you suffered. And it brings to mind for to me, um, you're a little bit older person than I am. My
My
father,
white hair.
the
Mhm.
white hair, give it away, Gail. Sorry. Um, my father, and my grandparents, like there are different standards and habits that were in generations, and and for me, as you mentioned that, it brings to mind a number of things, but one of them is that when I think about like the things that drove me to do the work with mindful parenting, one is that, when I was a little kid, my father spanked me, and, he had a big rage that was
Mm,
intense, and I saw it in myself. But I know that when he was a kid, he was born in 1945, and his father beat him with a belt with a leather strap. And that's something that nowadays, like, we would call abuse, and it was. But now, at that time, they did not think of it that way. And it's just amazing to, I guess, to see like how we start to shift and understand things, but also to see like how that hurt him in so many ways in his life, and the defenses that he has, you know what I mean?
mhm,
And it takes a lot to, one, I can see from my own personal experience that, with my father, someone can get stuck with these defenses of, holding on to, so to overcome that. Like, I mean, I guess I have a lot
mm,
of great respect for that.
mm.
I'm not sure what my question is here, but I'm just
No.
relating to this.
Mhm.
There's been a huge shift, and I'm sorry to hear that you suffered when you were a child.
Well, it's so important what you're saying because we learn from our parents. And if we don't stop and reflect, we just repeat the same
Mhm.
things that we've learned generation upon generation. That's what you're talking about with the pattern of spanking and hitting.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it takes so much conscious intention to step out of those automatic patterns, So I get what you're saying. I feel like I probably, in a way, stopped a cycle that I'm sure
Mm.
had been going on for numerous generations. And my son often says to me, good job, mom, you stopped that cycle because he knows kind of the broad strokes of my family of origin. And that's so much I know of what your work is about in mindful parenting is, we have
Mhm.
to we have to really understand our own patterns of reactivity in particular, because if we don't, we'll just reproduce them in our children. And then we all grow up thinking, well, I'm not going to be like my mother and father. And then we realize one day we're exactly like them, if we didn't take the time to be very intentional about what we're doing, because our parents, after all, are our primary teachers.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's a whole culture. So, what did you do as a young person to sort of break free of that culture, to start to transform these and heal these wounds that you had?
Well, quite honestly, I got into therapy,
Mhm.
which I
Yeah.
really needed. I didn't really have a way of making sense out of what had happened, particularly because my parents just looked great on the outside. My father was a professor of social work, my mother was a high school teacher. There were no drugs, no alcohol. It all looked just like a normal suburban family.
Mhm.
And that was really confusing. So I needed a solid relationship with a therapist to help me come to grips with the enormity of what had happened. And then I found my own trajectory in mindfulness, which has been just an amazing approach, toolbox, set of strategies, life enhancing. I can't say enough about it because it's really helped me see things more clearly, step out of some of the automatic ways that I was living and perhaps responding to my own emotional world and the emotions of those around them. It helped me question a lot of my own thoughts. And, for kids who are abused, it's almost inevitable that somehow you feel responsible. You feel
Mm.
like you brought it on, which of course is
Mm.
crazy when you look at that objectively, but that's the inner world of a child. They wouldn't be doing these bad things to me if I hadn't done something. It's kind of a magical thinking, maybe a way of having control in an out of control situation. Mindfulness really helped me with some pretty deep seated stories that I had about myself that I was fundamentally flawed. There
Mm.
was something shameful about me that, again, had led to what happened in my childhood. And therapy was great. Mindfulness put the whole thing in fast motion because it just kind of helped me see the stories that my mind was telling and
Mhm.
fueling about myself and to really question whether those stories were true or not because most of them weren't. They actually weren't. And that whole inner critic and imposter syndrome, the whole thing was like a big swirl inside that fed me these messages that there was something really wrong with me. As opposed to, okay, I'm not a perfect being, but let's try to switch that focus to what's right about me and what's right about others. And to me, that's a lot of the power of mindfulness, that getting to know our own mind and
Mm.
realizing that we have a lot more choice about our mental patterns than we often realize.
Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break. Looking a little better helps me feel a little better. It helps me feel more awake and alive and myself and just kind of ready to take on the day, which is why I love that Thrive Cosmetics is a sponsor of this episode of the Mindful Mama podcast because I am obsessed with their products and I have loved them for years now. Thrive Cosmetic products are made with clean, high performance, skin loving ingredients. They have clinically proven formulas. They highlight your best features and they actually improve your skin over time. All the Thrive Cosmetic products are formulated without parabens, sulfates, or phthalates, which is like a bottom line for me. I'm not going to be putting stuff on my skin that I don't trust is clean. And Thrive Cosmetics are never tested on animals. They're Leaping Bunny and PETA certified as 100% vegan and cruelty free. But the coolest part, Thrive Cosmetics has this incredibly great mission, this bigger than beauty mission. So for every product purchase, Thrive Cosmetics donates to help women thrive, women who are emerging from homelessness, surviving domestic abuse, or fighting cancer or more. So I love the products. I am so obsessed with the Liquid Lash Extensions mascara. I will never go back to any other mascara after this because it is totally different from everything else I've ever tried. It is really 1,000% better than every mascara I've ever tried. It makes my lashes look amazing, really pretty and real and natural, but long and dark. And it really, really works to make your eyelashes look long and pretty. And I am also totally obsessed, and I use these products like every single day. The Brilliant Eye Brightener, and it's this like cream to powder highlighter stick. And I have this like mauve top shimmer color. It's called Muna. And I have this rose gold color. It's like Aurora, the rose gold. And I use the rose gold like in the corner of my eye. And then you put the mauve, and it just makes your eyes look good. Honestly, these are universally flattering. They're shimmering. It's like super easy to apply and blend. It's not like you need this makeup degree to put it on. And I love it. Their products are amazing. I love everything about Thrive Cosmetics. You're going to love them as much as I do. Visit thrivecosmetics.com/hunter for 15% off your first order. And this is exclusive offer that you can only get here. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS Cosmetics, thrivecosmetics.com/hunter. You can find that link right in the show notes, wherever you're listening to this, like right on your phone too. Seriously, you just go look at where you're listening to this, you find the notes, you can scroll down, find that link, and you can get 15% off your first order. That's thrivecosmetics.com/hunter. There's so much there that you said that's just so I'm like, yes, yes, yes. I mean, I think that that takes that ability to like see those thoughts and say, are they true, are they not true, is incredible, right? Like it's something that's sometimes I feel like it's a little bit hard to convey to somebody who maybe hasn't been through that experience of realizing that you are not your thoughts and having this separation from them, to understand what a sense of freedom that is, because then you're actually the one choosing in some ways, like you're able to say, no, I don't think this is right, or is that really true, and all, like just like you said, is that true, do I have to believe that? I mean, and it's hard to sometimes hard to convey, I think, to someone who's hasn't had experience with mindfulness, the idea that you're believing all of your thoughts, and that it doesn't have to be that way. That it's Does that make sense?
Well, it's so funny how our minds are these storytelling machines in a way, and we just don't learn to question those stories. Somehow we
Hmm.
think that because it's a thought, it's real and it's true and it's factual. And I hear what you're saying, that word freedom. Once you begin to see that a lot of your thoughts are the opposite of factual, they're really a lot of fake news going on. It just, one, you can see the truth more clearly. That's the wonderful thing. You gain more clarity. You can really see that's just a fabrication of my mind. That just isn't reality based. So it just takes you to, yes, freedom, liberation in a sense. But it starts with that tuning in and really getting to know your own mental processes. And they are really fascinating when you stop and get to know them.
You mentioned suffering with a lot of things that I think that so many listeners can relate with, like this idea that there's something fundamentally wrong with me. There's something fundamentally flawed with me. And I think that may be, it's part of like the innate human dissatisfaction, right? That maybe the
Mm,
Buddha talked about, right? Like the dukkha, right? There is this
yeah.
sort of like innate human satisfaction. And I remember thinking about that for a long time, and feeling like that I'm not sure if that ever goes away. I've been practicing meditation for a long time, and then at some point it did go away. Like this sort of like I have moments now of the innate satisfaction, and then most of the time, 80% of the time, I don't have that anymore. And I I guess I'm sharing that with you as a listener to know that it's possible that can go away. But what helped? And you talk a lot in your book about, cultivating positivity, cultivating self-regulation, right? What are some of the so what are the some you started practicing mindfulness. How did you start to shift that voice in your head? Was it only through the meditation practice?
I would say it's a variety of things, and it's been a long journey. I want to echo what you're saying, that that voice is such a product of one, the negativity bias, And two, the way most of us are raised. Parents, very well intentioned parents, are still kind of like, why are you doing that? You should stop bugging your brother or leave me alone. I just need to get some work done here. Or you should do better in math. The bias in parenting is often toward the negative. And we we start internalizing these voices from our parents and from teachers and from coaches that I think prey upon the normal negativity bias.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like the parents, coaches, teachers' negativity bias meeting
Yeah,
the child's negativity bias, and it
yeah,
multiplies.
that's right. And if it makes sense, I wouldn't mind just reading a couple of paragraphs from my book because actually the part about working with the inner critic is my favorite part of the book. And I've gotten a lot of feedback that it's been particularly helpful for people. So maybe I'll just
Yes, yes,
read
please
a few
do.
paragraphs. Um, Often, the inner critic is a mix of critical voices we've heard over the years from parents, teachers, siblings, coaches, and others, internalized and knit together into a painful chorus of personal inadequacy. Over time, the voice becomes so familiar that we may even believe that it's our own. Because of feelings of shame around the abuse that I suffered, I developed an internal voice that said that there was something deeply wrong with me and I was different from others. From the way I walked to how I looked to almost everything I said, this harsh voice ran my life, limiting me in countless ways. But voices like these are never true to the unfolding reality of who we are, not for me and not for you. The inner critic's messages are based on selected snapshots and inaccurate ones at that. They don't reflect the full story of who we are and what we do in all the moments of our lives. The inner critic ignores our moments of tenderness, kindness, generosity, and goodwill that are also part of our days. Nevertheless, that voice can be powerful. I'll stop there. But we all have this inner critic. And Tara Brach, a mindfulness psychologist and educator, talks about the trance of unworthiness, which is, again, kind of a name for this trance that we walk around in, that there's something defective about us. And I feel like so much of my life's work and what I've tried to do in my book, Everyday Resilience, is help people dwell more in the good that resides within them, help
Mhm.
them see the inner strength and resources that, frankly, Hunter, we all have within us, but we don't always learn that it's there. That's a lot of what resilience is about. It's stepping out of these mental stories and questioning them, getting to know the kind of the other side of the coin, all the good that's within us, and to celebrate that more. It's not to say that we're perfect.
Mhm.
There's sort of an expression that you may know, you're wonderful just as you are, and there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, I like that one.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, yeah. It's so and I think it's just so helpful to understand that, like, we talked about that negativity bias, and just to understand that it this is like kind of the natural state of our nervous system, right?
Mm,
Just because of evolution, just what we're given, right? Is that we're just prone towards the negative. The neuroscientists say we're Teflon for the positive and Velcro for the negative,
right.
right? And and so when we can understand that, we can say, okay, like this is just the wiring I have. And so and understand that it makes sense that it takes more work to
Mhm.
get yourself then to neutral and get yourself then to a more positive place. Like, of course, then it takes some work to get there. And then if you've and so in some ways, like, people who have suffered in a lot or a little in different ways in their childhood have, if you've had some difficulty that has kind of forced you into that work, it's like in some ways it's like the silver lining of it is that you start to do that work, where does that make sense?
Oh, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's work that is worth doing. The payoff, the freedom, the joy, the goodness, the deepening of relationships that I've certainly experienced myself. And I've seen it with hospice patients that I work with, their families and their time of grieving, with physicians that I work with. And I've seen it in my own relationship with my son.
Mm.
My son's 23. He's been home because of COVID. That's quite a silver lining to have your adult child come back. And there's just so much laughter and joy in the household. It's
Yay.
really wonderful. And I know that a lot of that joy comes from the journey of facing some of the difficulty and working through it and shedding a lot of the baggage that I was carrying around because of life events.
All right, so maybe we should define what resilience is and like what are some of the things that can help us get to there?
Mm, mm. Resilience, people often think of as that rubber band, you know,
Mm.
bending but not breaking, or the willow tree that bends in the wind. And those are reasonable, but I think resilience is something more than that. It's really a renewable resource that we all have within us, even when we don't know that we do, which allows us to draw upon these inner resources to help us meet with and cope with whatever challenges we face. I define resilience as a deep well of strengths, courage, goodness, fortitude, and resources that, again, we all have within us that can allow us to face the challenges that we have to in our lives, small or large, with minimal, unnecessary physical, emotional, psychological, spiritual duress. In other words, we all face challenge. That's a part of life. We all do, even though sometimes we can feel like, gosh, why me? But it's never why me. It's all of us face difficulty and challenge. And
Not
certainly
personal.
it is not personal. We can really see that with COVID. This
Yeah.
is the whole globe of people facing these challenges, right? And that's the nature of challenge, is that we're never really singled out. And when we can tap into and harness our own resilience, we actually find that we have what we need. And that may sound surprising to your listeners, but I would encourage people to pause for a minute and think back on challenges that they've overcome, either as a child or as an adult, perhaps an illness, an accident, a difficult boss, a job transition, challenges, with a child and special needs or other difficulties, challenges taking care of an ailing adult, a parent. So we can look back at those. And when we look back, we realize, wow, we got through it. As difficult as it was, we did mobilize. We did harness internal and external resources to get us through those difficulties. And it's so important to stop and do that, because we can so easily be overwhelmed and fall into that pit of, I can't, I don't
Mm.
have what I need. How am I going to get through this? Very normal to experience that. And yet, if we can pause and reflect, we realize that we actually evidenced a lot of strengths in past challenges. And then we can remind ourselves, oh, I do have those strengths. Let me think about how I can apply them to what I'm struggling with now. That's a powerful exercise that can help us really get in touch with our inner capacities, which are often something we really kind of underestimate. We think it has to be something outside of ourselves, but we have a lot of what we need inside.
Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break. When I was a kid, some of my favorite summertime activities included walking down the block to the rock wall and like climbing all over this rock wall and discovering all the like sea creatures and bugs and stuff that were in the rock wall. I love that. I loved going to the beach. I loved building hideouts. I loved climbing on top of the shed in the back of the house and reading books up there and then staying up late under the covers to finish that good book later. You know, some of life's greatest childhood adventures happen during the summertime. And that's why I'm so thrilled that KiwiCo is a sponsor of the Mindful Mama podcast, because with a KiwiCo subscription, kids can take their imaginations to new heights with super cool STEAM projects delivered every month. They're so amazing for trailblazing toddlers to more experienced explorers and every single stage in between. So, whether you're like watching nieces and nephews for a week, or you're starting at projects for a summer camp, or you're preparing for the next school year ahead, KiwiCo brings those projects right to your door. I love the KiwiCo Tinker Crate line, which is like for ages 5 to 8. They make such amazing projects. They make a water fountain, they make a sketch machine, they make an animation machine. I mean, all of these amazing things. My daughter loved making the arcade claw and grabbing things with it, and she did it all by herself. It was like something that she didn't even want me to be involved with, but it is something that you can do with your kids and have so much fun. I love that the materials are super high quality, the directions are really clear, and, there's endless projects. There's so much more I would love to do. I really want to make the sketch machine. KiwiCo crates are such a great way to cultivate your child's natural creativity and curiosity with a new hands on project every single month. They'll explore new worlds, they'll rediscover familiar ones without leaving home, from sailing the solar system to building an animation machine and more. And everything's shipped right to your door, and there's no commitment, so you can pause or cancel anytime. And one thing I love about KiwiCo is that, it's hard to find creative ways to keep kids busy and screen free while stretching their brains, especially now. But KiwiCo does the legwork for you. So you can spend the time tackling projects together, and they're really fun and cool. With KiwiCo, there's something for every kid or kid at heart every month. Get your first month free on select crates at kiwico.com/hunter. You can find that link right in the notes wherever you're listening to this. You can get your first month free on select crates at kiwico kiwico.com/hunter. I know you'll love them as much as I do. Which goes back to the, like, debilitating quality of, like, that inner critic. I mean, what you're kinda
Mhm.
saying, it goes to that, like, was it Ford who said, "Whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you're right," you
Right.
know? And I love that quote, but what you're describing, right? This deep well of strengths and courage and wisdom, we have to believe that it's in there. You know what I mean? We have to not be so bogged down by the negativity bias that will even look at and access those strengths,
Mhm,
because we won't access them and cultivate them if we don't believe they're in there. So it
mhm.
kind of goes back to that in some ways.
It goes back to that and being willing to take a closer look and
Hmm.
really see what's there.
It's more
What
honest what you're describing.
Yes,
It's more
yes. It's
honest.
the truth. This isn't sort of a Pollyanna, "Oh, I'm great and I don't have any flaws," and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a realistic appraisal. What have I struggled with in my life? Which for any of us, it's not gonna be a short list for any human being, and how did I get through that? What did I do? And you might think to yourself, oh, it wasn't me, it was my husband or it was some other, I changed jobs. But I would push that individual to think, well, you picked that husband, didn't you? You stayed in that marriage, you did that work, you knew that you needed a different job. What part did you play in it? And it's often really validating and helps us to focus more on our capacities.
So, what are some ways that we can cultivate more positivity and we can kind of dampen some? And I guess, I talk about interrupting that negativity bias, but
Mhm.
what would you say to that?
I would say one very practical thing that we can do is look at what we're doing well. So I work with physicians now. I work as a master coach with fellow physicians. And you'd be surprised how many physicians get caught in this sense of not doing enough. And so
Mm.
here we are in the pandemic. And I've coached intensive care unit docs, physicians. Oh, I'm not doing very well. I couldn't save that mom of those two teenage boys. Or an emergency room physician. Oh, I can't keep up with all the sick people. What's wrong with me? Or a family physician doing telehealth visits. I'm not a real doctor. I'm not on the front line saving lives.
Mhm.
So, this focus on what we aren't able to do, a simple, very practical approach is to look at what we are able to do.
Mhm.
The end of every day, a list of three things that you did well that day or three things that you accomplished. Many of us go to sleep at night, oh, I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that. And look at all I have to do tomorrow, right? And then we wonder why we can't sleep. So we can begin to cultivate that ability to focus more on the positive by looking at the reality. Maybe that physician couldn't save lives, but they were there for their patients. They didn't abandon their patients in a time of need. That's no small thing in the pandemic.
Yeah.
They showed up, they brought all the expertise that they could and the wonderful human element. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So we can begin to kind of fill and replenish our well of resilience by focusing on the good that we are able to do and the things that we do accomplish. That's at the heart and soul of positive psychology, focusing more on what human beings do well rather than what they don't do well, rather than focusing on all the pathology, right, which
Mhm.
dominated the field of psychology for decades, if not centuries. Shifting that focus to, hmm, yeah, I guess I did do a lot. How do you like that? That gives us then the energy and the motivation to go forth and do more good in the world. So it's really important, and we can again cultivate more of these attributes. It's never about just saying to somebody, "Oh, be more positive." Just step out of the negativity bias. That's kind of psychobabble, but it's tools. Specific tools to help people dwell more in the goodness. I think it's really important as a parent as
Yes.
well. We can get very caught up in what our child isn't doing well and what we want them to do more of, right? And it can be
Mhm.
deeply frustrating and not always as motivating as we'd like it to be when we point that out to the child,
Yeah.
right?
No. That's not that helpful sometimes.
Right. And yet easy to do.
Yes.
And yet, and then even at its worst, we can start thinking that our child is sort of a bad apple of some sort. There's something
Mhm.
wrong with the child when children are just beautiful, innocent beings who have a lot to learn in the world, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's an important exercise for parents as well to pause at moments of frustration in particular and think, whew, what's good about this little child who's driving, quote unquote, driving mom crazy,
Yes.
because they're just being themselves.
Yeah, they're
So
just
that,
trying to get
yeah,
their needs met.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
it can help us help them get their needs met and frankly get our needs met and
Yeah.
really work together in an effective partnership.
I love this idea of like focusing on what you were able to do at the end of the night. And again, this is not because you're deficient in any way in positivity. It's just because we all have a natural negativity bias, but we could do that for
Yes.
sure as physicians could, parents, we can do that, especially if you're at home and every day feels like a run on into a big
Mm,
long, blur of days,
mm,
then
mm,
it
mm,
it really can help to just say, okay, what did go well in my mindful parenting course and membership. What the first thing we do in every session is, what are your wins? What worked well for you? What is working for you? Maybe it's just showing up, right? If you're having
mm,
a hard day, but showing up, like you said, is something. Like that is something,
mm.
and that helps us to what we practice grows stronger. That's what helps us to show up again and do it again, and help you be more resilient and bounce back from that. I love that,
So true.
so would you suggest that we could, you know, ways of, this way of being more resilient to consciously and intentionally focus on some of our strengths, is that's probably something we can certainly teach our kids. Sometimes
Mhm.
I'm so surprised at how negative my child's voice is. She's like, I can't do this, I can't do this,
Mm,
and I'm like, yet honey, you can't do it yet. It's
mm,
like,
Mm,
It can be hard to watch somebody our kids' negativity bias
yeah.
in action.
Right, right. And they learn it from those around them, in the on TV, us, other relatives, right? I mean, we're such a smart species. We're always learning as kids. Yeah, I think that's one strategy. I think a couple of others. One, self-compassion
Mm,
is so important for parents, for physicians, really for all of us to remind ourselves that we're working really hard. For parents during the pandemic, it's perfectly unreal, to have your full-time work, your domestic responsibilities, and oh, by the way, now you've got to take care of your kids 24/7. Oh, and we didn't tell you you've got to educate them too. So, and you have to entertain them because they can't be with their friends and they can't go to extracurriculars. It's really unreal. And
it's
so
crazy.
with self-compassion, instead of getting into bed thinking, "Oh, I can't believe I lashed out at my kids. What's wrong with me? I'm a bad mom or dad." To actually put your hand over your heart and remind yourself, this is really hard. This is really demanding. Every parent, similarly situated to myself, is going through the exact same challenges. So to give yourself a little space for being an imperfect human being amongst other imperfect human beings. We're all imperfect, and parenting certainly shines a light on that. So to take that time to remind yourself that it's hard and you're doing the best you can. We all need those reinforcements. And the more we can build that muscle of compassion toward ourselves, we can actually be more present in compassion with our kids and with others. So I think that's critically important, particularly during the pandemic. And the other strategy, very practical strategy, is purposeful pauses.
Mm.
Nothing fancy. Just noticing when your emotional temperature, like, oh, I can't believe, they interrupted me one more time. I just have to get one report read, done, or some meeting that I'm on Zoom. And noticing that your emotional temperature is rising and using that as a cue to take a pause and take
Mm.
3 slow, deep breaths, perhaps a long exhalation phase that really invokes the parasympathetic nervous system, the brakes, as opposed to the gas pedal of reactivity. I think it's a really underutilized, simple practice that can make all the difference because in that little pause, you realize also that you have a choice, the freedom that you were talking about, Hunter. You
Mm.
have a choice. Okay, I can be reactive and irritable, and I'm really going to regret it later. I'm not going to feel good about myself, and that's what my kids are going to see. Or I can just calm myself down a little bit and realize, none of this is that important. My kids are healthy.
Mm.
It's all good. We're going to be fine. Like that pause is just invaluable. I know for myself as a parent, that was really a game changer for me, adding those pauses, especially when my son was a teenager. That temptation to just, they come at you. You're the worst mom in the neighborhood, the planet, whatever. You wouldn't get me this video game, whatever it is. And, we react like, oh, but I've given you so much. How can you be saying these things to me? You've hurt me. You've mortally wounded me. You know what I mean? We go to this
Oh my god. You
crazy reactive space and then we yell at them and they yell back. I mean, it's just this reactive mess. But if we can pause, we realize, that's just what teenagers say. Come on. Why take it seriously? Why take it personally? We can just take a few deep breaths and then, okay, yeah, we leave the room and we come back. We just don't fuel that reactivity cycle.
you have no idea how close to home this is because these earbuds that I'm using right now, they I had some other earbuds that only could hear out of one ear, and I did an interview, and I was like, "I cannot." So I went to my almost 14-year-old daughter's friend.
Oh,
I said, "I need to use your earbuds." And, in my mind, she was so difficult about it, and in my mind, I'm like, "Ah," all the things. So, yeah, this is, like,
yeah.
getting quite close to home for
Oh,
me,
it
but
pushed. We're
yeah,
human beings.
let
Our
me
buttons get
step into
pushed.
that big picture, step into the big picture, and that actually reminds me, you talk about the 3 marks. What are the 3 marks, and how can they help us?
Oh, this is a Buddhist concept, the 3 marks of existence, which frankly we could also call the 3 facts of life. And they're very simple. One is that suffering occurs. Suffering is part of life, difficulty, challenge. Every human being suffers. It's just a part of the package. That's the first mark. The second mark is that everything changes. Everything is impermanent. And some of that is welcome news. Bad things shift. That's welcome. Part of impermanence is a hard pill to swallow, that relationships change. People leave our lives, in various ways. But that's the second mark, that everything changes. And the third is that little in life is personal. The third, if you wanted to study Buddhism, has to do with the self, but it really translates in Western society to how seriously we take ourselves. We think everything's about us, right? Why me? Why is this happening to me? They said something, it was hurtful to me, or, you know, why am I the one? You go on Facebook, you feel like everybody's lives are wonderful. And what's wrong with mine, that I have the struggles that I have? But what that third bark says is that it's just the way it rolls. And you're no different from anybody else. There's a lot of randomness out there. So
Yeah.
I think the three marks of existence are a very important concept for building resilience. Again,
Mhm.
realizing that it's not just you, that's powerful. We add on a lot of mental stories about what's wrong with me that I can't cope. A common story that I'm sure your listeners are aware of, like, well, the other moms seem to be doing just fine during the pandemic. They're not getting upset with their kids. What's wrong with me?
Mhm.
And yet, this is the reality for being a mom in the time of the pandemic and otherwise, right? So there's a lot less suffering when you can come back to that knowledge that it's not you. Similarly, around impermanence, that things will shift. Whatever difficulty I'm in, time will pass, and I'll see this in the rear view mirror, and I'll realize, oh gosh, it seemed like such a big deal, but was it really? So
Mhm.
impermanence is kind of our friend in that way. So
Mhm.
I think having that flexibility of mind to realize that suffering is the lot of everyone and that change is part of life and that it just isn't personal to me can
Mm.
really make it much easier for us to bear the challenges that we face.
Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break. We are supported by the blue light glasses that started it all. The best on the market, Felix Gray, or at least I say they're the best. I work at a computer a lot for my work during my coaching calls, working on the podcast, working on mindful parenting, and my eyes would feel dry and itchy and I would get headaches. And no longer, now that I have my awesome Felix Gray blue light glasses that I love. I adore them. 5 years ago, Felix Gray realized that, our eyes aren't meant to look at screens all day. And they designed glasses to make daily screen time more comfortable and the workday more productive. Felix Gray lenses filter 15 times more of the most important blue light. And these are high quality glasses. They have classic frame styles made from acetate and hand finish for durable, lightweight glasses that are both comfortable and stylish. I wear the Felix Gray Hopper blue light glasses, and I have the color Seneca Mist, which is this like really pretty clear blue. It's so pretty, and they look pretty good, I think. I really love them. So we know that with summer in full swing, that typically means maybe less work and more play. But for those times you need to plug in and get in the work zone, Felix Gray has your back and they have non prescription and prescription options available. Go check them out now. FelixGrayGlasses.com/hunter. You can find that link right in the show notes where you're listening to this, even on your cell phone. That's FelixGray glasses.com/hunter. There's free shipping, free returns, free exchanges. You won't regret your Felix Gray glasses. They have changed my life. FelixGrayGlasses.com/hunter. It allows us to accept it. It's like
Mhm.
that's like to we're given the story in our society, in our culture, that we should be comfortable all the time, we should be happy all the time, and to instead have the truths that no, everybody suffers, everybody has difficulty, look, which we know, of course, as soon as you say it's like, well, of course, but that, and the truth of impermanence, is, I find it so helpful. I started studying uh, Buddhism when I was a teenager, and I love the idea of, and I thought about that as I was studying art history, with the idea of the memento mori, and what painters in the past and also in the present too have put in a memento mori, or they sometimes some paintings put in like a hidden sort of skull in the painting, which is like this just reminder of death, which is this reminder of impermanence. And it sounds like a little bit morbid, but if you remember that you're impermanent, like you're not gonna
Mm,
it's happening for all of us. There's just the one escapable inescapable thing, then we can be more present for what's here. We can take that step back and see that, see all this, see that it's not personal, it's not
mhm,
take that step
mhm,
back and really actually be more attentive to what we want to be attentive to,
mhm.
rather than, and give our lives the focus that we want to give it, rather than just letting our manic mind or our autopilot just take over. We can just be more intentional, I think, when we remember these things.
Without a doubt. We've all had near misses, right? Your kid takes the car and they don't come back for the 10 o'clock curfew, and you're thinking, oh no, something really awful happened, right? Or we have a slightly abnormal finding at the doctor's office and we're not sure if it's going to be something bad. And in those moments, we were faced with the impermanence. And then when we get to the other side of it and the teenager comes home with the car, or we find out that the lab finding was just a fluke and we're fine, it's like, oh, phew. And we feel so appreciative of what we have, right? So appreciative that that teenager is alive and in your life and the beautiful being that they are. And that's kind of the gift of impermanence is the appreciation, the deep appreciation of the preciousness of what we have. We have so much in any given moment. As bad as things might be, we still often have a lot. And
Yeah.
it's worth taking it in, isn't it?
And it's worth doing all the things you talk about in your book, Gail, like cultivating self-regulation, cultivating positivity, cultivating mindfulness, cultivating a practice to steady the heart, right? It just allows us to be able to, it's hard to be a human being on earth, and just to be able to show up for the like intensity and difficulty of
Mhm.
just everybody's life. It really points to why we need to do that. So I'm thinking about, like, we were you write something really beautiful in your book, which is, well, none of us can write a new beginning. We can all write a new ending. And I
Mhm.
think that's really beautiful. It very much speaks to your work as a hospice doctor. My mother was a hospice nurse for
Oh.
most of her career, and she's retired now. Hi, mom. She listens to every episode.
Oh.
Um, but I love this idea that we can write a new ending.
Mhm.
So as we start to like think about this, like if we think about, as you think about that, like, what are the things that, I guess for you, kind of going back to your own personal story, what are the things that I guess the values and intentions that you want to bring into like kind of your life, or you want your I don't want to say the word ending, but that's the truth of it. Like
The next chapter.
that you want to be intentional about, and how are you gonna cultivate those?
Well, that's kind of a big
I
question.
guess so, it is.
Well, I've come to understand that my purpose is to be with people in their dark moments, in their difficulties in the world, and help them see that they don't have to be alone with them.
Mm,
And further, it's to help people really be more in touch with the truth of who they are, that deep well of resilience. So, to help people see the wisdom and goodness and strengths that they have within them and dwell in them more and more. We each deserve that. We deserve to dwell, to live in the good that we are. So that's my deepest purpose, and I don't know that I always knew that. I
Mhm.
wasn't even sure why I went to medical school to work in end of life care, but I didn't really understand why. And then I gravitated to helping colleagues who were struggling with burnout and didn't learn to be resilient. Medical training, in many ways, erodes our resilience. And I've just really come to understand that that's what I'm here to do. And that's what I tried to do in the book. The book is short and it's very practical. And I wasn't sure when I wrote it if I was just kind of repeating things that other wise people had said. And the feedback that I've gotten is that I was really able to synthesize a lot of wisdom in a short, very practical, accessible manner. And I think that's what people want. And that's part of my purpose. If my book can help to be there for people in their difficult moments and give them a sense of hopefulness, then I feel great. That's the contribution that I want to be making in the world.
So we kind of what I'm hearing you say is that we can start anytime to kind of cultivate this resilience, that it can be a dark and difficult time. It can be a time where maybe we haven't been, we've been feeling burnt out. For people who are in like a dark and difficult time, what are some of the first steps that you recommend?
We've touched on quite a few of them.
Hmm.
The first step is self compassion.
Yes.
To be kind to yourself in your moments of difficulty. I describe in the book something that some of your listeners may be familiar with, a self compassion break.
Mhm.
Actually, a little break where you physically put your hand over your heart. If it's comfortable, you put your other hand over your belly and you kind of squeeze, a gesture of hugging yourself. And you remind yourself that what you're going through is really difficult, and you deserve compassion in that moment. I think that we cannot give ourselves too much compassion. It's not selfish at all. It helps us be more present for others in our world. So, first and foremost, lots of doses of self compassion. And then just on a practical level, some sort of mindfulness practice, some sort of paying attention to your own mind, just getting to know what's going on up there anyway, and really not judging it because it is what it is, but getting to know it. And in doing so, you invariably realize that you can work with it more effectively. So
Mhm.
those are a couple of things.
I couldn't agree more. So beautiful. It's been a real pleasure to meet you and talk to you today, Gail. Where can people
Likewise.
find out more about you and what you're doing?
Yeah, my website, www.gailgazelle.com. I offer a free chapter of my new book, if that's of interest to people. And then I have a course that I'm launching, Imposter No More. So many people suffer with the imposter syndrome. And you know what? You don't have to. You can learn how to vanquish it. It's really just a thought process. So that'll be coming out in the next month, and I encourage people to take advantage of it.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate your wisdom and your voice and spending this time with you. It's been great.
Thank you. This has really been a pleasure. Thank you.
I love what Gail says, that impermanence is a gift, right? This appreciation is a gift that we can wake us up to what we have in this moment, even when things are challenging. I had a challenging day today, and like as I reflect on that, it's like it puts all the things in perspective instantly. It's amazing. I'm wondering what you're taking away. What are you taking away from this? I'd love to know. You can tag me at Mindful Mama Mentor and let me know what you take away from this. I would love to know, what are your ahas and if you appreciated this episode. So please do let me know. It really makes a big difference to me and the team to do all the things we do to bring this episodes to you. So I would love, love, love to know. Let me know. And just want to let you know that I'll be back in your podcast player this Friday with a Mindful Parenting Bite episode talking about the truth about punishment. So this will be a short, quick episode. So make sure you tune in. Just perfect size episode for pick up and drop off or whatever you're doing. And I just want to thank you. Thanks. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here, being a listener. Thank you for sharing and doing the things you do to support this movement. As you create more peace in yourself, you create more peace in the world. It is absolutely true. So thank you for doing that work to share, to create more peace in yourself, to listen to something that will shift things for the better, like this amazing episode. So I want to thank you for being part of here, for listening all the way here to the end, and just I want to share my gratitude for that. And I wish you a really beautiful week. I wish you peace and calm and joy in all the little things that you can appreciate in your life. And I will be back to talk to you soon. Thanks so much for listening. Namaste.
I'd say definitely do it. It's really helpful. It will change your relationship with your kids for the better. It will help you communicate better. And just, I'd say communicate better as a person, as a wife, as a spouse. It's been really a positive influence in our lives. So definitely do it.
I'd say definitely do it. It's so worth it. The money really is inconsequential when you get so much benefit from being a better parent to your children and feeling like you're connecting more with them and not feeling like you're yelling all the time or you're like, why isn't things working? I would say definitely do it. It's so worth it. It'll change you.
No matter what age someone's child is, it's a great opportunity for personal growth and it's a great investment in someone's family. I'm very thankful I have this.
You can continue in your old habits that aren't working, or you can learn some new tools and gain some perspective to shift everything in your parenting.
Are you frustrated by parenting? Do you listen to the experts and try all the tips and strategies, but you're just not seeing the results that you want? Or are you lost as to where to start? Does it all seem so overwhelming with too much to learn? Are you yearning for a community of people who get it, who also don't want to threaten and punish to create cooperation? Hi, I'm Hunter Clark-Fields, and if you answered yes to any of these questions, I want you to seriously consider the Mindful Parenting membership. You will be joining hundreds of members who have discovered the path of mindful parenting and now have confidence and clarity in their parenting. This isn't just another parenting class. This is an opportunity to really discover your unique, lasting relationship, not only with your children, but with yourself. It will translate into lasting, connected relationships, not only with your children, but your partner too. Let me change your life. Go to mindfulparentingcourse.com to add your name to the waitlist, so you will be the first to be notified when I open the membership for enrollment. I look forward to seeing you on the inside. mindfulparentingcourse.com.